Some houses in Sicily still open up to the sea every morning, but the children who were once born inside them grew up, grew old, and passed away in New York, New Jersey, Chicago, or Philadelphia, a whole ocean away from home. On this island, the sea isn't just a pretty view. The sea was once the road away. It's where mothers, dressed in black, stood silently on the docks, watching their sons step onto a ship with one small suitcase, a few sets of clothes, a family photo, and a promise to send money back once they reached America. Sicily today is still breathtakingly beautiful. Golden stone alleyways in the sunlight, noisy markets, smelling of fresh fish and ripe oranges, church bells ringing across the old tiled roofs, and Mount Etna smoldering in the distance like a heart made of fire. In small kitchens, tomato sauce still simmers slowly on the stove. Bread is still placed in the middle of the table, and family is still the most sacred thing of all. But behind that beauty lies a question that isn't easy to answer. Why did an island with blue seas, with family, with memory, with a soul this deep, once become a place that millions of Italians had to leave behind just to go looking for America? But this journey won't stop at just one question: why the Sicilians left. Because if we only look at this island through the emigrant ships, we'll miss the most important thing of all: why it hurt them so much to leave it. Sicily isn't an empty memory. It's Palermo, waking up to the calls of the old markets, where fresh fish lies on beds of cold ice, golden oranges are stacked into little hills, and the voices of the vendors rise up like a kind of street music. It's Catania, living in the shadow of Mount Etna, one of the most active volcanoes in Europe, both threatening and nourishing the fertile land around it. And Sicily is also the stone towns sitting on the hillsides, the balconies full of laundry drying in the sun, the old churches, the long, lingering meals, and the families who treat the dinner table as the center of life. In this video, we won't look at Sicily as some Mediterranean postcard. We'll go deeper into the island, a place where history, poverty, faith, food, family, and emigration all pile up on top of each other across many generations. Because maybe the Sicilians left the island by ship, but they carried Sicily with them in their food, in their family names, in their prayers, in their memories of the market and the church bells, and in the stories passed down to their children and grandchildren on the other side in America. Sicily sits right below the toe of Italy's boot, separated from the mainland by the narrow Strait of Messina. But the feeling it gives off is never just that of an extension of Italy. This is the largest island in the Mediterranean, a big stretch of land lying between Europe and North Africa along ancient sea routes where, for centuries, civilizations passed through, leaving their mark in the stone, in the language, in the food, in the architecture, and in the very faces of the people. Seen from above, Sicily looks like a giant anchor, dropped in the middle of the sea. To the east is Catania and Mount Etna, the tallest volcano on the Mediterranean islands and one of the most active volcanoes in the world. To the north is Palermo, a city that's both chaotic and charming, where layers of Arab, Norman, Spanish, and Italian history stack up in every dome, every market, and every church facade. And inland are the towns perched on hills, the roads winding through dry earth, the olive groves, the vineyards, the wheat fields, and the villages that feel like time slowed down a long, long time ago. But it's right here that the first paradox starts to show. Sicily sits at the heart of the Mediterranean, one of those seas that once connected empires, merchants, pilgrims, and conquerors. And yet, for many families born in the inland villages, The outside world could feel as far away as something they could never touch. The sea was right there, but opportunity wasn't. The land was right under their feet, but the future was on the other side of the ocean. And maybe that's exactly why Sicily isn't just an island on a map. It's a place where people always lived between two poles. On one side, the motherland, holding them back with memory, family, and identity. On the other, the sea, opening up a promise of a different life, wider, bigger, but also more painful. This is an island people love very deeply. They love it through the smell of warm bread in the morning, through church bells falling down into the narrow alleyways, through the taste of salt on the skin after a day out at sea, through family meals where people don't just eat to be full, but eat to remember where they belong. In Sicily, home isn't an abstract idea. It lives in the kitchen, in the family cemetery, in the local accent, in a mother's hands, in the small square where everyone has known each other's names for generations. But that very same island also became a place too small for the future of a lot of people. In the late 19th and early 20th century, millions of Italians left home for the United States. And the Sicilian community, in particular, made up a huge part of that wave, with causes tied to rural poverty, a lack of opportunity, and long-standing injustices in southern Italy. So the Sicilians didn't leave the island just because they wanted to forget it. Many of them left precisely because they still had family staying behind. A son stepping onto a ship didn't just carry the American dream. He also carried the responsibility of sending money home, rebuilding the house, raising his younger siblings, paying off old debts, or saving his parents from a life with no way out. Sicily was both the place that held them and the place that forced them to leave. And when a place is both your homeland and the limit of your future, do people choose to stay and hold on to the memories, or leave to save their own family? To understand why so many Sicilians left, you have to look at a period when the island's beauty couldn't hide the harsh life underneath it. After Italy was unified in the 19th century, the South and Sicily didn't step into the future at the same pace as the North. For many farming families, life was still chained to the land, the harvests, the debts, and very narrow opportunities. Some people didn't have enough land to farm. Some had land, but not enough to feed a big family with many children. And when poverty, taxes, a lack of jobs, and social instability all pressed down together, America started to appear, like a promise that was far away, but real. From the 1880s to 1920, more than 4 million Italians came to the United States. In the first decade of the 20th century alone, more than 2 million Italians immigrated. For many in that generation, the first point of contact on American soil was Ellis Island, where millions of immigrants were inspected before stepping into a new life. But before there was New York, before there were the little Italies, the story began in the small villages of Sicily. A father, looking at the dry land and understanding that next season still wouldn't be enough to feed all his children. A mother folding a few sets of clothes into an old suitcase, adding a family photo, a little holy object, or a piece of memory for her child to carry. A young man who had never traveled past the hill behind the village, suddenly having to learn the name of an ocean. Many who left didn't think they were leaving home forever. They went to work, to send money back, to pay off debts, to rebuild the house, and then to hope to return one day. But time has a way of turning a temporary trip into a destiny. A job that stretched on for one more year. A child born in Brooklyn, New Jersey, or Chicago. A Sicilian name, slowly read with an American accent. And from then on, Sicily began to live two lives. One real life, on the island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and another life, in the memory of those who had carried it over to America. Morning in Sicily doesn't start with a rush. It starts with the sound of an espresso cup being set down on the counter, with the smell of fresh bread out of the oven, with the sound of scooters weaving through narrow alleys, and with the markets that have woken up, even before the sun. In Palermo, old markets like Ballaro, Vucciria, or Capo aren't just places to buy and sell. They're the stage of everyday life, where fish, vegetables, cheese, meat, fruit, and the calls of the vendors all blend together into a rhythm that's very Sicilian. In that rhythm of life, you might come across an older woman preparing lunch for her family, as careful as if each dish were a way of holding on to the past. On the table, there might be bread, olive oil, fresh fish, tomatoes, or dishes that have followed Sicilians through many generations, like arancini, cannoli, cassata, panelle, and seafood from the waters around the island. Food here isn't just for eating. It's a memory you can touch, you can smell, you can pass down, without needing a history book. At a small harbor, a fisherman might be untangling his nets after a long night out at sea. In a square, a few older men sit in the shade of a stone wall, talking slowly, as if time were still something that could be stretched out. In an old house, there might still be a photo of a relative who went to America decades ago, placed next to holy pictures, candles, or little objects the family couldn't bear to throw away. But Sicily today doesn't belong only to the old and to memory. It also belongs to young people, standing between two questions: stay in the place they love, or leave to find a wider future. And somewhere out there, a Sicilian American might be coming back, walking the stone roads of their ancestors' village, looking for a family name on a gravestone, a church in a birth certificate, or a piece of homeland that their grandparents once carried across the ocean, in memory. So everyday life in Sicily is never just the present. In every meal, every market, every church bell, the past keeps walking, very slowly, beside the people. In Sicily, the sea is always close by. It sits at the end of steep roads, behind the smell of fresh fish in the market, beneath the balconies hung with laundry, and far out at the small harbors, where the boats come back before the sky has even brightened. But for many Sicilian families, the sea wasn't just a place to make a living. There was a time when the sea was the line between the old life and a future no one could be sure of. From the late 19th into the early 20th century, a great many Italians came to America through Ellis Island. In the period from 1880 to 1920 alone, more than 4 million Italians entered the United States, and many of them came from southern Italy. Those people stepped onto the ships not as tourists. They went with little luggage, with their village name still heavy in their accent, with a promise to send money home, and with the belief that this trip might only be temporary. There were goodbyes that began at the harbor, but stretched on across many generations. A son leaving the island to work in New York, a letter coming back after a few months, a sum of money sent home to pay off debts, to fix the house, to raise the younger children. The money sent home by emigrants once became such an important part of the Italian emigration story that research on early 20th century Italian migration often points to remittances and returnees as two big themes of that era. But not everyone came back. Some stayed for work, some started families, some had children born on American soil. Some became a kind of bird of passage, going back and forth between two worlds until one day, the ocean was no longer a trip, but the distance of an entire family line. And from then on, the harbors of Sicily didn't just keep the sound of the waves. They kept the goodbyes that were never fully spoken. But the question of leaving never truly disappeared from Sicily. It just changed its shape. Today, this island is no longer the Sicily of steamships carrying poor people across the Atlantic. Sicily has tourism. It has agriculture. It has wine, olive oil, seafood, ancient heritage, beaches that draw the whole world, and cities like Palermo, Catania, and Taormina that are still alive in the eyes of visitors. Tourism is an important part of Sicily's economic life, but it can't answer, all on its own, the question of stable work, of income, and of a long-term future for young people. For many families, making a living in Sicily is still tied to very old sectors: the land, the sea, small restaurants, local markets, the tourist season, or work that depends on each region. But behind that beauty, the labor market of southern Italy is still one of the country's biggest gaps. National figures from Istat show that Italy's youth unemployment rate has stayed at a worrying level in recent years. And economic analyses of Sicily, in particular, stress that young people on the island face an unemployment rate much higher than the national average. So a young Sicilian today can love their island with everything most familiar to them. Sunday lunch, their grandmother's voice, the square they grew up in, the smell of the sea after a hot wind, the shadow of Mount Etna on the horizon. But that love still has to face a very practical question. Stay and hold on to where you belong, or head up to northern Italy, to Europe, or even farther to find a clearer opportunity. In the old days, many Sicilians left the island to go to America. Today, the trips might be shorter, more modern, less tragic, but inside them is still the same old ache. How do you leave a place you love, just because the future there isn't wide enough to keep you? If the history of emigration is the part that hurts Sicily, then culture is the part that helps this island survive. In memory, in Sicily, identity doesn't sit in a museum. It walks out into the street on feast days, in processions through town, in the music, the bells, the smell of candles, flowers, smoke, and food rising up over the crowd. Festivals like the Festa di Sant'Agata in Catania, or the local religious celebrations, show that in Sicily, faith isn't just the church's private business. It's the way a whole community remembers together, prays together, and confirms together that they still belong to a place. Cultural tourism sources for Sicily also emphasize that food festivals and religious feasts stretch across the whole island, tightly tied to local produce and community life. But the soul of Sicily probably shows up most clearly in the kitchen. Olive oil, fish, tomatoes, citrus, eggplant, pistachios, ricotta-filled pastries, street foods like arancini or pannelle. All of it doesn't just make up the flavor. They retell the history of an island that was once passed through by the Greeks, the Arabs, the Normans, the Spanish, and modern Italy. Sicilian cuisine is therefore very diverse, from region to region, season to season, feast to feast, and is seen as an important part of local culture. When Sicilians went to America, they couldn't carry the stone house, the land, the square, or the church bells of their village, but they could carry the recipes, the way they called each other in the family, a holy picture, a family name, an accent, a habit of gathering on Sundays, and sometimes a pot of sauce simmering slowly in an immigrant kitchen could hold the homeland longer than any map. Because for Sicily, culture isn't just something to put on display. It's the way people fight against being forgotten. But as the world comes to Sicily more and more, a new paradox shows up. In the old days, a lot of people left this island, because of a lack of opportunity. Today, the very beauty that once wasn't enough to keep them has become the thing that pulls tourists from all over the world to come here. The old streets of Palermo, the beaches of Taormina, Mount Etna, the fish markets, the churches, the food, and the Mediterranean sunlight have made Sicily more and more present on the international tourism map. In 2025, tourism reports note that Sicily continued to reach roughly more than 22 million overnight stays, showing that the island's pull is still very strong. But being seen doesn't mean being understood. To a tourist, Sicily might be a Mediterranean dream. Blue seas, stone streets, cannoli, wine, beautiful photos in the sun. But to the people who live here, Sicily is also rent, seasonal work, shaky wages, the off-season months with few visitors, and the question of whether an economy leaning so much on beauty can really keep its young people from leaving. Behind the hotels, the restaurants, and the tourist apartments are the workers' cleaning rooms, waiting tables, cooking, hauling goods, working seasonally or under unstable contracts. Recent analyses of tourism labor in Sicily have stressed this very paradox. Tourism is growing, but many people working in the industry still live with insecurity. At the same time, many inland areas are still facing population decline, aging, and the departure of young people. Studies on the inner areas of Sicily describe mountain communities under pressure from a weak economy, few opportunities, and the distance from developed centers. And that's the most subtle price of change. An island that once lost people to emigration now risks being loved in a way that's too fast, too pretty, too surface level. As the world is gazing at Sicily, the question is, who will still stay to live out its soul in full? When the sun starts to set over the Sicilian Sea, the island seems to slow down. The last light of the day spreads over the old tiled roofs, over the golden stone walls, over the boats lying still in the harbor. From far away, Mount Etna still stands there, quiet, like a memory that never goes out. In a small kitchen, the sound of a knife on the cutting board, the soft bubbling of sauce, an old voice calling the children and grandchildren to the table. All of it creates a feeling that's hard to name. It's both the present and the past at once. And it's right in that moment that the original question comes back. Why did the Sicilians leave? Not because Sicily wasn't beautiful. Not because they didn't love the sea, didn't love their family, didn't love their village, didn't love the church bells or the Sunday meal. They left because there were times when beauty wasn't enough to feed people. Love of home can't replace a job. Memory can't pay off debt. A familiar piece of land is sometimes still too small to hold the future of a whole family. But it was precisely because they left in pain that they carried Sicily even more strongly. In the great wave of the late 19th and early 20th century, more than 4 million Italians came to the United States, many passing through Ellis Island, and then built a new life in American cities. But they didn't step into America empty-handed. They brought their family names, their faith, their food, their way of gathering as a family, and their memories of the villages on the other side of the ocean. So Sicily isn't just a place that was left behind. It keeps living on, in the little Italas, in the immigrant kitchen, in the saints' feasts, in the bread, in the cannoli, in the Italian names read with an American accent across many generations. There are islands that exist on a map. Sicily also exists in longing. Sicily isn't just the island that millions of Italians once left behind to go to America. It's the place they carried with them, in silence. In the kitchens of New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, or Chicago, Sicily lives on. through the smell of tomatoes simmering, through bread set in the middle of the table, through the family, names their children and grandchildren pronounce with an American accent, through the story of a village across the sea that many of them have never even set foot in. For many Italian-American families, Ellis Island is the first chapter of their family history on American soil. Over more than 4 decades of operation, that place welcomed more than 12 million immigrants through its gates. But before that first chapter was another chapter, farther back, older, and more painful. That was Sicily, the harbor where a mother saw her child off, the stone house left behind, the piece of land that couldn't feed the whole family, the promise to send money home, the letters that crossed the ocean, read over and over until the paper grew thin, like memory. Maybe what makes Sicily special isn't just the blue sea, Mount Etna, Palermo, Catania, the ancient markets, or the meals bursting with flavor. What makes Sicily unforgettable is the way it stays inside people, even after they've gone very far away. Because there are homeland people leave with their feet, but never leave with their soul. And Sicily is a place like that. The sea once carried the Sicilians away from the island, but the sea also kept the echoes of those goodbyes, those American dreams, those losses, those sacrifices, and the love that was never put into words. In the end, Sicily isn't just a place that was left behind. It's a place that keeps living on, in the memory of those who left, in the lives of those who stayed, and in the generations still trying to understand where they come from. If you love stories about faraway lands, where people live between beauty, memory, and choices that aren't easy, come along with us on the journeys ahead.